I was grooving. This is like the perfect way to start. Were you grooving? Hi, everyone. Exactly. It's a pleasure to be back for our third session of our TL Masterclass Crisis Communication with our buddy, friend, expert, Jeff Chatterton. For those of you who are now in our third session, I hope you have found it interesting, useful. We have had a number of one-to-one calls and meetings with several agents that have joined us, a few hoteliers, and it's been fantastic. I think it's been very insightful for both Jeff and I to get a good feel for, what are your needs, where everybody is, how useful these tools have been. So for me, every time I do it, I learn something new. So once again, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. For those that have not met Jeff before, he is the expert in crisis communication. He's an author, he's a communicator, he's a consultant, he's a speaker. So Jeff, on to you. Thank you again so much. And I look forward to learning more and more, always.
I always get intimidated when you drop the intros like that. and I'm with you. I was grooving along. Wait, what happened to my music?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of. Okay, here we go. I just wanted to reiterate what Tina had said. I've been having an absolute blast. We've had a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed these particular sessions and the ability to come and hang out and share and just kind of dump a little bit of what's going on inside my brain. I want to also say that I have been having an absolute riot getting up in the morning and having just conversations with some people from all over the world when it comes to what's going on in their particular, slice of the universe. We've had, we're not going to share names, but we've had conversations with people from, Brazil and Mexico and across Latin America, but also Dubai and Asia and throughout North America, and it's just been absolutely fascinating. And quite frankly, if I'm going to be selfish, it's just heartwarming for me because it's encouraging to know that it's helpful, if for nothing else, right? No one likes to think that, when I sit here and I pour this all out to you, it's good to know that it's actually working for people. So if that's you, we'll have that chat. I wanted to talk about recovery. The whole point of today's session is, what's your bounce back plan? What is your recovery? What are we going to do to actually get back to normal? I imagine if I asked you right here and now, how many people want it to be February all over again and we can start over, I imagine the vast majority of you are going to go, yes, please, right? And I get that. I shared the analogy way back 3 or 4 weeks ago about what happens when you have a curve in the road. When you have an unexpected curve in the road, frankly, scary things happen, right? And I think that's how a lot of people feel right now. A lot of people feel like they're part of that car. They've just been absolutely taken for a ride. They've been charging down that road, absolutely going along fine, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, craziness happens. But I also remember sharing with you what happens when you can anticipate and deal with the curves in the road, because crazy things happen if you can actually manage to handle the curves in the road in life. And the curves are always going to be there. So the question is, how do we figure out what those curves are? And more frankly, how do we recover? How do we get back to where things were in February of 2020? So the very first question I have is, are we going to get back to where things were in February of 2020? And so when I started doing some research into what recovery looks like, there are three different options. And the first option is what we call the V-shaped recovery. Now, if you imagine the economic growth on a chart, obviously we've had that sharp fall. The question is, will it be a sharp rise? Will we bounce back? And that's certainly, I think, what everyone hopes for. I think that's absolutely the best option for most people. Then there's a lot of conversation about what's called a U-shaped recovery, and that's where we've had that sharp fall, but we spend a long time kind of bouncing along under the at the bottom, underwater, and then finally we figure it out, and we come up with some sort of magical solution, and we get into a rise. That's called the U-shaped recovery. And I wanted to talk about mentally bracing yourself for the fantastic opportunities, yet the scary premise that is the check mark recovery. So that is where we have a sharp fall, which we've all seen, but a long, slow climb back to the top. Now, I know that a lot of you are thinking, oh my God, please, dear God, no, right? I mean, we can't handle this. I'm losing jobs, I'm losing bookings, I'm losing money, my employees are laid off. What on earth are we going to do? And there's a wonderful a wonderful saying in crisis communications. I didn't even stop to think about it until just this very moment, actually. So I don't even have a deck for it. But the Chinese definition of crisis is dangerous opportunity. And that's what we are all facing right now. We have an opportunity in front of us. Personal anecdote, and Tina will back me up on this. We had a conversation this morning with one of the people who took us up on an opportunity to sit down and talk to us. And Tina, you told the person who was there, look, this is a wonderful chance to completely reinvent everything you've ever done wrong and figure out what you could do differently and grow in the future. And I think that's what mentally we need to understand is about to happen. I wish, trust me, I wish I could do something to create a V-shaped recovery. And for some of you, there may in fact be a V-shaped recovery. Understand, though, this is more than likely and not to be a checkmark shaped recovery. It's a longer, slower climb back to the top, but it's a wonderful opportunity because everyone else is in the same boat. Now, let's take a deeper, closer look at what that long, slow climb looks like. Everyone has probably seen some variation of this particular infographic. You know, what entrepreneurial success looks like versus what it feels like, what it really looks like. And I think everyone we've talked to is familiar right now with the squiggle factor. It's rough. And you wake up in the morning not really sure what's going to happen today, and you're not really sure where you're going to find the next client. You're not really sure whether or not your business is going to continue. You're not really sure how you're going to get that sleep back when you spent an hour and a half staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m. That's normal, and it's okay. There's a lot of that going on right now. We've been having a lot of conversations with some really awesome, really successful entrepreneurs who don't feel awesome and don't feel like they are the true business leaders. They're dealing with a lot of chaos. They're staring at their revenue. They're staring at their bookings and the fact that their bookings have plummeted off a cliff. And it's reflecting in their own personal self-worth, and it's reflecting in the way they make decisions. So what I have been consistently telling people is decreased bookings is not your problem. Decreased bookings is a symptom. The problem is that you're not trusted. with trust, everything becomes dramatically easier. You can get through these challenges. You can get these problems. It's not that big a deal when you're trusted. It's not unique. I have been saying all along, most tourism companies are really good at playing promotion in peacetime, but they don't have a really good proactive stakeholder management process. You just don't have the right process in place. So let's talk about recovery. If you were around in the very first week, we talked about stakeholder management plans. We talked about how on earth we can actually get people to come back to the business. So we talked about the importance of prioritizing your stakeholders, doing it formally, writing it down, coming up with an actual playbook. So I wanted to just touch on this really quickly. We're not going to redo all of the stuff that we talked about in week one, but you're going to come up with a big long list, and you're actually going to get creative. Brainstorm the heck out of this list. Not just your bookings, not just your customers or your past customers or your future clients, but every stakeholder in your business. I want you to write that person down. We're going to come up with what I call the priority list. It's very critically important for you right now, if you're going to recover, to prioritize who you are recovering with. Obviously, you've got your employees, your neighbors, your regulators, your suppliers, your DMCs, your ground handlers, your booking partners, your software providers, all of these different organizations, people. There's a whole crazy universe out there that are affected by you, by your organization, whether you're a hotel, whether you're a travel agent, whether you're an independent travel agent in the scope of a bigger umbrella, whether you are a fully employee, salaried travel, professional. It doesn't matter. Everyone has a universe of stakeholders. So do yourself a favor, and I mean this. Actually write them down. It's not going to take long. You shouldn't have to spend more than an hour at most just brainstorming, sitting down, firing them all out. Just have a glass of wine and just chug out every name you can think of when it comes to your business. What I do is I'm going to walk you kind of through the process that I use when I'm walking to a client's particular office, and we're trying to make sense of the world and trying to figure out a game plan in order to figure out where we go forward. So this is purely hypothetical data. This is completely fake data, just so that you have an understanding of what we're looking at. But I'm going to put down, just to grab something really simple, like an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to start firing down names, every single name I can think of. Next, once I've done that, really, I'm looking for about 200 names. If you've got less than that, you're not casting the net as wide as I think you could be. More than that is just going to be chaos. Anywhere between 100 and 200. For math's sake, let's just say 100 names, but whatever, 100 names. Here in this particular example, we have 147 names, but that's really awkward math. So let's call it 100, right? So next, I'm going to come up with a score, and I'm going to score everyone based on the importance they are to me, for whatever reason. And don't base it based on revenue, base it on importance. Someone who's really important gets a 10. Now, here's the thing, though, because there's a system here. If you have 100 names, you only get 10 10s. You only get 10 9s. You only get 10 8s, etc., etc., etc. You can't just sit there and give everyone a 10 or everyone a 2. I want you to prioritize. You only have 10 10s, so figure out what your 10s are. Then figure out who your 9s are. Figure out, maybe it's easier to then figure out who your 1s are, etc., etc., etc. Do not waste a lot of time arguing with yourself between, is this person a 4 or a 5? Don't do that to yourself. But you're going to have some really clear answers. Who are 10s? Who are 1s? Who are 9s? Who are 2s? When it gets to the middle, go with your gut. This whole process should take you 15 minutes. It's not going to take you a lot of time. The very next step, we're going to actually take that data and pretend it doesn't exist. Now, we've already prioritized everyone based on importance. Next, we're going to prioritize them using the same system. We have 10 10s, 10 9s, 10 8s, etc. We're going to do it based on how much do they trust me? Not how much do I trust them? How much do they trust me? And now here's where it gets fun. Once we've got both of those sets of data, it's a really, really simple mathematical equation. All we're going to do is subtract the first column from the second column, and we are looking for a score. I can't highlight, but if we can see here, the ABC Travel Company, they're only a 4 in terms of importance, but they trust us. But by a 9, they're a -5. They're not a priority right now. If we start working our way down, well, here's Tina. She's very important, obviously. Tina's a 10, but she also trusts you a 10. So frankly, that means that she's a 0, right? That means that you don't need to focus right now on communicating to her. Now, second from the bottom, there's that real moron, that Jeff Chatterton guy. He's really critically important, but he only trusts you to a 2. Now that's a problem. That's a problem. Now we're starting to figure out who it is we need to communicate with. Now, again, remember, this is fake data. I needed to throw someone under the bus, so I threw myself under the bus. Just taking a quick look here, that Jeff Chatterton guy is a priority. I can see that Esquire Limousine is going to show up as a +5. The Ritz-Carlton Bangkok is a +5. You're going to be able to start prioritizing and figuring out, once you've got all 150 or 200 names, you can sort them in that order, and it's really quickly going to give you some patterns. You're going to start to see maybe you've got a problem with your suppliers. Maybe you've got a problem with your employees. Maybe you've got a problem with your, past clients, whatever your particular issue is. And that's going to shape your communications approach as we move forward through what I call the squiggle time, as we grow your business, as we continue to move forward. I'm trusting this is fairly self-explanatory for you at this point. If it's not, jump in, throw in some comments, ask some details. We will cover it all, I promise. I can't see comments right now just because I'm sharing my screen large. So now,
no comments so far. I think everybody's just following along.
Everyone's with me so far. This is not rocket science, folks. This is basic Excel work. But what that's going to do is it's going to give you a roadmap as to who your priorities are, because you cannot communicate to everyone. You feel like you need to communicate to everyone. You can't do it, nor should you be doing it. There are a lot of things that you need to be focusing on right now, and being all things to all people is not one of them. So we talked about forgetting about facts. We talked about the importance of, now that we've figured out who our audiences are, communicating in a ways that are emotion-based, not fact-based. We discussed the what I call the emotions pie, and how at the end of the day, by far and away, the #1 thing that your audience needs to feel is that you know how they feel. You've now figured out, you've exactly who you're going to be communicating to. You exactly know what their concerns are because you're a good listener. You've asked yourself those same questions. You can start communicating on that level on a one-to-one human basis. What it all boils down to is we discussed it in week 2, what I call the recipe. There is an actual formula here, and I was having a tough time explaining the importance of the formula until I was actually in a client's boardroom once, and they said, well, it's kind of like birthday cake. And I said, excuse me? And they said, well, everyone, when you make a birthday cake, you go to the store and you get a package of brown powder. And that's your birthday cake. But it's not. You start as brown powder, and it's not hard. You add the brown powder. You add, and I'm going to make this up here. You add 1 egg, 1/4 cup of oil, 1/2 cup of milk. You put it in the oven for 350 degrees for 20 minutes. When it comes out, voila, you've got birthday cake. Now, what happens if you forget the oil? You put it in the oven, you bring it back out of the oven, and then add the oil after. You don't have birthday cake. You've got oily goop, right? If you forget the eggs and you add the eggs after, you can't do it, right? Now you've got eggy, gross goo, right? You have to follow the recipe. And the recipe that we laid out in week 2 was always, always, always start with empathy. We're always going to remind people that we understand how they feel. We're going to hit them with our, what I call the headline message, the key message, the rock statement. We're committed to doing everything we can to save your vacation, or whatever your message happens to be. We're going to back that up with a fact, but only after we've delivered that with empathy. Then we're going to use a personal anecdote, a supporting fact, but then we're going to wrap up the whole thing with those same 7 to 11 words, that rock statement. When you follow that recipe, really good things happen. And I'm not making it up. Again, I had a wonderful conversation this morning with someone who said, I wasn't really sure. I tried it your way, and to my shock and surprise, it worked, right? It's true. When you follow the recipe, you will calm people down. They will trust you. They may not like what you have to say. They may not even like you, but they will trust you. And that's so critical to what it is we're trying to do here. So let's back this up. We've got a headline message. We've got our 7 to 11 words that we know to be unassailably true. Because you've done your homework, you know exactly who you're going to deliver that message to. Now, you're going to get proactive. You're going to get on the phone. You're going to send a personal email. You're going to send a personal handwritten note to those particular and specific individuals. This is not the time for saccharine bulk emails. This is not the time for, monthly email newsletters to talk about, hey, here are some fun vacation ideas, or what's a good recipe idea if we're all stuck at home, or things like that. All your competitors are doing that. You're smarter than that. You've got a game plan. You have a bounce back recovery plan. You know exactly who it is you're going to talk to. Why cast the net wider? You're going to hit the exact people that you're going to need to communicate to with the exact right message. And I know what it feels like I'm saying, total sidebar. I golf, and I'm really happy because here in Ontario, Canada, golf courses are finally open again. And I was explaining to my girlfriend that I have a new driver, and I was excited to get out and swing it, and it hits the ball really far. But that the problem with hitting the ball really far is that if I don't hit it exactly straight, it means that it's really, really far away, 3 holes over, or off into the bush, or off into the forest, or God knows wherever that ball went. And her message was, well, just hit the ball straight. And I'm like, if only it were that easy, right? And I know that's what this feels like. I know I'm just saying, okay, just do exactly everything perfect exactly every time. Problem. No big deal, right? But it really is that simple. You know exactly who you're going to communicate to. You know exactly what it is that you need to say. Now it's just a case of making sure that you fill in all the blanks without blowing yourself up. Now, that's where it gets tricky. Well, this is what I call the squiggle time, the landmines, the things that are going to blow you up. We're going to do something just a little bit unusual and a little bit informal. And this is just basically Jeff Chatterton's brain dump on things that you're going to do as you communicate over the next 3 to 4 weeks. I am going to trust and hope and pray that you do the homework, that you do the work. You've got the game plan. If you need some help putting together your bounce back plan, for heaven's sake, take advantage of Tina and I and reach out to us. We'll walk you through it. But you're still going to have to go out and do the work. You're still going to have to reach out and communicate to all of those priority stakeholders. And there are some things that you're going to want to say, and there are some things that you can't say, because you will get in more trouble than it's worth, and you're going to be in even more trouble than if you started. So the very first one, I always tell my clients, if you're ever going to communicate to an at-risk audience and you have a message that could be shaped as a negative, you can't repeat the negative. You can't deny a negative with a negative. Let me give you an example. If this wasn't a travel issue, for example, I've done a lot of work with cleanup and contaminated landfill sites or whatever. One of the key messages that you can't use is drinking the water won't give you cancer. Right? Obviously, people are concerned, hey, if I drink the water here, I'm going to get sick. Actually, no, drinking the water won't make you sick. That's a horrible key message. The travel industry right now is dealing with, you're just keeping my money. So what you don't want to say is, we're not just keeping your money. We're trying to come up with a refund process that's fair, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't deny a negative with a negative. The problem with negatives is that they are stark, they are vivid, and they are memorable. And I know you're all probably a little bit sick and tired of politics, but I'm going to give you the most famous political quote in the entire world in the last 50 years. And I bet everyone is going to be able to figure out what that is. Oh, it's not even the wrong example. It's a Canadian example. So I'm going to skip ahead. But everyone remembers, I did not have sex with that woman. Right. If you're a different generation, you probably remember I Am Not a Crook by Richard Nixon. You can't deny a negative with a negative. Don't do it. Your 7 to 11 word key message needs to be positive. It needs to tell them what you are, not what you are not doing. I hope that makes sense for folks. Another one that I run to, we talk about this a little bit in week 2, hedges and guarantees. People are looking for certainty. It's a common human psychological need. They need certainty. And so your job is to offer them that certainty. And it's tough because right now we have a tough time offering that certainty. If you're in charge of a particular hotel and they're asking you, hey, I'm not sure I trust your cleaning practices, you can't say we have every reason to believe our hotel is safe, right? That's a very good answer. It's an engineered type answer. It's an answer that's probably written by a lawyer. If you're a travel agent, absolutely, we look forward to it. You should be able to fly to Portugal this fall. Whatever that's not going to work. So what you're going to look for here is, if you can't offer them certainty, figure out a way to offer them certainty. So our hotel is safe. Now, let me tell you exactly why. You know, I'm updating our travel advisory system every day. The minute I see travel availability to Portugal with the restriction on the travel bans, I will tell you about it, right? That is a far more definitive point. Those of you may remember, if you were here in week 2, I talked about the word guarantee. Can you guarantee me that we're going to be able to take our vacation at some point this year? You can't. Right now, the entire world isn't able to offer guarantees. So what you do is you repeat the word back to them. Oh, now, by the way, only really bring this out if they use the actual word guarantee. But if they say, can you guarantee me that we're going to be able to take this trip? Say, I can guarantee you we're going to do everything humanly possible to let you take this trip, right? Sometimes they just need to hear the word back in order to be calmed down. Other issues that you're going to run into, I call it the jargon bomb. The travel industry is like every other industry I've ever worked in, and it is notorious for funny insider terms that don't make sense to the casual reader or to the casual listener. In fact, I'm still trying to figure out some of the odd little references that people throw out there every day that you don't hear because you're used to them. You talk about, destination management companies, DMCs, inbound versus outbound, all of these different funny things. The very common one that I run into all the time is they talk about airport transfers. Airport transfer is a stupid term. Why don't we talk about, we'll give you a ride at the airport, right? Airport transfers don't make sense to people. It's not psychologically simple, but they don't want to ask anything because they don't want to sound dumb. So I used to say to people, would you say that to your spouse? No, you're going to say, no, I'll pick you up at the airport, right? Now I've stopped saying, say it to your spouse, because quite frankly, chances are good your spouse is used to your own level of stupid language BS, right? So now I've changed it. Would you say that to your dumb brother-in-law, right? You can't, you need to break this down for people because they won't understand if you start using industry specific language. Closely related to the jargon disease is what I call TMI disease. And I've seen this quite a bit, especially with the coronavirus issue going on. And that is the TMI stands for too much information. If we just give you the entire history of the coronavirus and travel bans and restrictions and how these restrictions are in this countries, but they're lifting in this countries and they're doing this and stop. Take a deep breath. Your audience doesn't care. They may think they care, but they don't really care. They want to know, am I going to be able to go on my vacation and is it safe? That's the emotional factor that they keep asking you. Stop trying to answer all of their questions with data. Stop trying to answer their questions with facts. Answer their questions with emotions and the stuff that they really, truly, genuinely care about. Have the information available. Absolutely. Hey, here's what's going on with travel restrictions to Portugal. At the moment, absolutely, your trip is safe. This is what's happening and why. We recommend, leaving in November for this particular reason. Here is the history. If you have any questions, here you can get into all of the facts and the data and Portuguese transmission rates on the COVID-19 or anything else that's going on. But they don't need to hear it from you, right? And because chances are good, once you've looked them in the eye and said, hey, you know what? You're asking some really interesting questions. We've asked ourselves those very same questions. Your trip is safe right now. Let me tell you why. Boom. And you're off and running, right? That's really what they're going to care about. One of the issues that I see happen, and we do this a lot when we do mock interviews, whether it's a mock interview with a reporter, whether it's a mock interview with an upset customer, whether it's a mock interview with an upset supplier or a regulator or even an employee, is have your message, have your communication, deliver your message, and then shut up. Stop. Talk and stop. The most critical point in communicating is sometimes stopping to communicating, because listening is just as important, if not more important, than talking. And what happens is people look at you and they go, okay, smile, nod, and ask them if they have any more questions, right? Let them lead the conversation. Let them take the conversation where it needs to go. Now, when it's all said and done and you finally delivered it, remember, you're always on. They're always looking for you. There is no such thing as off the record when it comes to a conversation with a trusted employee, when it comes to a conversation with an at-risk customer. Stick to your message points because you believe them to be true. You honestly believe them to be the honest truth. Stick to your points, deliver your message, deliver anything you feel you need to communicate, but then give room for them to stop and think. Sometimes the most critical part of a conversation is the 10 or 15 seconds that they stop and they look at you and they think about what it is you're saying. And they come to a realization on their own. But if you don't give them the room to do that, they're never going to get there. You can't steamroll them in a conversation. You need to slow down and let them do some of the thinking. Let them do the emotional realization in their own time. I have already mentioned, if you are paying close attention, I have mentioned several times a few funny references to what I call body language issues. I'm very aware that 99% of you are probably going to be having these conversations on the phone, and it still matters. Body language is pervasive. Here's the thing. There's something actually called a meridian theory. It was put forward by UCLA professor Dr. Joseph Moravian that talks about what people receive when they are being communicated with. So when I'm speaking with you, whether that's right now over a webinar, whether that's on a phone call, whether that's in a Zoom conversation, whether that's face-to-face, whether that's beside you in the men's room, it doesn't matter. When I'm speaking with you, when I'm talking, when I'm communicating with you, only about 7% of what you are receiving are the words that I'm using. Another 40% are the way those words sound. That is far. If I said to you, let me give you an example. Just in terms of tone and language. Oh, absolutely. Your vacation's safe. That's a very different message than, oh, absolutely, your vacation's safe. It's not the same message, right? You can't do it, right? You have to be very careful with your body language. And even if you're on the phone, even if you're delivering a message in writing via email, There's a reason, there's an expression in English anyway that says they were sitting on the edge of their seats. Now, do they literally mean they were sitting on the edge of their seats? No, it means they were tense. They were anticipating a very big moment, right? Body language is the universal way we communicate. The way we look when we deliver a message is a good 50% of what gets picked up. The way the words sound is another 40. The way the actual words you use is only about 10%. So, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen just so I can share a few little funny things here, just so I can show you what it is. If I could figure out how to, there we go. How to stop sharing. That would be like, all right. So now this is going to be a little bit awkward just because, hey, we're all sitting here in our living room and we're all on Zoom. But I call it, if we're having a face-to-face conversation right now, there's a couple things going on. First off, I'm not sitting against my chair. I'm literally sitting on the edge of my seat. You can see that. The reason I do that when I'm talking to you is because it forces me to lean in. I'm squared up. I'm chatting with you. I'm engaged. I'm free to use my hands. I'm not doing this because, frankly, even if I'm comfortable, this looks arrogant after a while. We're not trying to be arrogant. We're trying to be open, engaged, and caring with our at-risk audience. So we're leaned in, we're square to a camera, we're square to our audience. By the way, there's a whole other teaching I could deliver for you on the difference between men and women. Men, you would never address at 180 degrees to each other. Men tend to stand at 90 degrees to each other. They don't actually square up and face each other. Two women will actually stand knee to knee and have a conversation. So we're having this conversation. We're leaning in. I call it the pizza box. This is, it's stupid and it's funny, but because it's stupid and it's funny, you're going to remember it. But I'm going to take a box of pizza. And I'm going to take that box of pizza here, show you the pizza. Here's my box of pizza. I'm going to squish it and I'm going to turn it sideways. I'm going to shove it against my chest. Now I'm going to open it up. Now, wherever there's tomato sauce, that's where your hands live. As long as your hands are in the pizza, you're fine. The minute your hands get out of the pizza, weird things happen. This is defensive, right? This is back in the pizza. This looks open, honest, and trustworthy. This looks like back off, right? You can go on and on and on. I'm going to stand up just for a second, but if I start doing this, right, we call that the fig leaf. That's my hands are out of the pizza, and that means, quite frankly, I'm not comfortable with what it is I'm saying, and I'm starting to get defensive. Women tend to start playing with their hair, playing with their earrings. You know what you're doing when you do that? It says, I'm not really comfortable with what it is I'm saying, and I'm a little bit nervous, and I'm a little bit scared, and I want to give my face a hug. That's what it is you're doing. Men are just as bad. Men play with facial hair. They start doing this, and they're giving their face a hug, right? Leave your hands in the pizza box. I understand. It's a weird time. We're all hanging out on webcams right now. We're all doing this, and we're making do with what we can. I hope at some point, someday, I run into one of you and you say, hey, I was having this conversation and I remembered, hey, hands in the pizza. And it felt that much more natural. I've done my job. I understand it's a weird and crazy time right now, but that's the universe we're dealing with. People need to communicate with people. If you can, anytime your hands get together, you're outside the pizza box, right? And this is where you start to wring your hands. And this says, I'm not comfortable with what's going on. This is a sign of nervousness. Conversely, this is authoritative. This is domineering and arrogant, right? You can go on and on and on. If this were an in-person communications training session, which I do for clients all over the globe, I would have a whole session when we would actually sit through and we'd figure out what your particular style was and what we need to do in order to embrace and enhance it. But those are what I call just the laundry list of things that you're going to want to do that you need to be careful with. But really, what it boils down to, guys, come up with your prioritized list. If you just have a list of customers and a list of employees without any thought or reason or rationale or rhyme behind it, you're not doing your job. That's not a list of priorities. You need to prioritize your list. If you don't have a prioritized list, you are shooting yourself in the foot. You are trying to communicate all things to all people. It's not going to work. So prioritize your list, figure out your message, and get started. Do one thing. If you just do one thing, make one phone call. It'll be scary, but just make one phone call. Now you know what that one phone call has to be, because someone on that list is an 8 in terms of priority score. Maybe that's the highest person on your list. Well, okay, if you're going to make one phone call, make that one phone call. But now you know exactly what that one phone call needs to be, right? Prioritize your list.
And if I can add something, I think that's also very important, and that we talked about, I think today, or I don't know which days, because we've been having all of these very early meetings. Keep an open mind, and don't, mentioning back to what Jeff said at the beginning, this is the time to reconsider, to transform, to consider new options, and to possibly change the company from where it was today. We had Priscilla Alexander on our TL talk on Friday. If you don't know who she is, she was the founder of Pro Travel. At the time, it was one of the biggest, it still is today, one of the biggest agencies in the world. She sold it when it was worth $900 million. So very successful lady. And one of the things she said was, if she were to open a retail agency today, it wouldn't look anything like the one she opened so many years ago. And that says a lot. It's still a successful company, but and she says, how much of your business is the way it is because it started off that way, and how much of it do you want it to be this way? And this is the time to review that. So when you make these calls, when you speak to people, keep an open mind as to what are they saying, and what's the message here? What are they, should I be doing something different? Is there an opportunity? Take notes, and don't call with your own message and not listen. As Jeff said, if possibly the most important thing of the call is listening to what they have to say, because creating these TL talks and these TL masterclasses and our TL University, and this had nothing to do with my business yesterday. I mean, zero. And it all came about because everybody that I called mentioned they wanted this. And it was it straight up, Tina, please do a masterclass. I would really like a training on crisis communication, or, no, but there was an underlying message that kept coming, and I kept, wait, I hear this again, and then I look back at my notes, and it kind of so it was like everybody was conspiring for me to do this. And it's working because it wasn't my idea. It was everybody else's idea, but I had to listen. And I think there are, these, where do I go from here? You're going to hear it when you start to speak to people, and you keep your ears open and your mind open. And that's, I think, the fundamental part of the next chapter is stay in touch, make the list, make the calls, don't hide behind emails, pick up the phone. If the person is open to a webinar where you have video, put the video on, get dressed up, from waist up. You can be in pajamas, but put on the video, speak to the person, use the pizza thing, do the thing, but get out there, because once you get into this communication and you start to listen, then little paths, it's like they say, the universe conspires, little paths start to open up way beyond who you were yesterday. And that can only happen out there, right? It's scary. Trust me, when I started to do the TL talks, it's still scary. It's not what I do. I'm not a mediator. I'm not a trainer. I'm not, whatever I'm doing here. But I'm listening to what everybody needs, and I'm doing my best, and I think it's helpful. The feedback we've been getting has been great. And how long am I going to do this? I don't know, as long as it makes sense, and then I'll stop, right? So I think that's also super important. Listen, keep an open mind, take notes. There's two, if you guys don't follow us on Instagram, do at TL Portfolio. And the reason being, not because I'm doing promotion or anything, but we put up the quotes from our TL talks, and there's true wisdom in these quotes. We had a great speaker, Adriana Cavalcanti, sorry, she's the advisory board president of WTM, World Travel Mart. And she says, and it's so nicely put, she says, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. And that's exactly what you have to do. Don't sit and wait for it to pass, because it could take a while. I think better, if you think the check was a bad scene, I was hoping he wouldn't do the W, I mean, that would have been even worse. So the check was a much more positive thing than a W. I mean, we're way above what I was afraid he was going to talk about. So if it is a check, then dance. Do something, create, imagine, listen, try new things, and see where it'll take you. And if it's not a good thing, stop, try something else. Nobody, 90% of everybody's not doing anything at all. So as Jackie Zon always says, he says, Tina, if you're trying to do anything, you should be applauded right now, because 90% of people aren't doing anything. So that's already a good start, right? So be one of that 5% and give it a shot. You never know, might work. How's that?
Wanted to remind people, look, we've had some fun. It doesn't need to end. If you're interested in telling us what is going on in your particular business, the challenges you're facing, you want some personalized help on, hey, what's going on with, I'm having troubles getting my employees, to get on board with this, or my people are upset about this. Set aside some time. Tina and I have set aside a time to actually sit down with you one-on-one, and we'll go through it. We've been doing this for the last couple of weeks, having an absolute blast. I'm pretty open about the fact that I roll out of bed about 15 minutes prior and make coffee, and as long as you don't want to see my pajama pants, then everyone's going to be happy. But don't waste that opportunity. Please get on the link to book the one-on-one session with both Tina and I is right there in the comment section. So go check the comment section right now, click that link, and let's talk about this face to face.
Yeah, I see a lot of the comments on the Q&A. If you do want specific examples, additional, give us, this could, Jeff said something on a talk today that I thought was very interesting. He says he does consulting for large companies, and he goes out and they say, okay, do a strategy. And he takes like 2 days, and he comes back with 7 to 11 words. And they're like, that's it? And he's like, yeah, but these are really good words. Like, this takes forever. You know what I mean? It's not like, no, just, the example he gave on the first lesson of, closing the hotel is the best way to save the hotel. That's a fantastic one. One that I think many people have used, and I've used personally, is I can guarantee you I'm doing everything I can to help you, or I'm guarantee you I'm doing everything I can to save your vacation. That's a great message, because that implies your full commitment. You're giving everything you have, and the person can rely on you. So it's hard to give many examples because it's not, it's a tough one. But please go ahead, book your one-to-one if you want to. Jeff and I would love to hear from you. I put my email at the beginning if you want to write me. I'd love to know if you're interested in having more masterclass sessions. This is the last one that we had planned. And if so, what do you want to hear? What can we help you with? If it's not communications, it's service, if it's whatever it is. This helps me to look for the right people, or to continue with Jeff. I don't think there's anybody better than on communication. So keep me informed, send me ideas, and let's keep the conversation going. So yes, more. I figured they would say that if I asked. But I think that's it from my side. Jeff, you've been a rock star. Thank you so much. I think I personally had a blast doing this. It's been fantastic to get to know so many of you through these one-to-one sessions. Many of you I already know through our offices in New York, or with Monica in Los Angeles, or in Mexico and Brazil. Please, if you like these sessions, please do share them through our YouTube channel, subscribe. Feel free to share the videos. The idea is to reach and help as many people as possible. So share it with your team members, share it with your colleagues. We promote everything on our Instagram account, which is at TL Portfolio. And just keep informed, keep connected. Let us know how we can help. That's what I'm doing right now. We've gone from getting representation and PR agency to like a goodwill agency. That's who we are now. So let's make the best out of it. Let us know how we can help. And once again, Jeff, thank you.
I have had an absolute blast. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you to the audience for not heckling me. I heckle back though, so I've had just a blast. Thank you so much. I look forward to chatting with most, if not all of you, at least one-on-one. Please take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah. Friday, we have another TL talk. It's at a later time. We have an Asia panel. So I believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be 8 p.m. in Brazil on Friday. That's going to be 7 a.m. in Asia for Toby Swire, Deputy Chairman of Swire Hotels, Toby Smith, Deputy Chairman of Swire. So please log on and check our YouTube for past videos as well if you need to connect. Thank you. Have a great evening, Jeff. Thanks a million. And I'll see you very early tomorrow morning for more one-to-one sessions. So you're going to be seeing me bright and early.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks a million. Have a great end of the evening or morning, wherever you are. Thank you. Cheers, Jeff.
Cheers.